Hi everyone, welcome. December is usually a quiet month with very few launches, but this year the developer of Coastal Cabana has decided to keep both buyers and agents very busy. So Coastal Cabana EC will open for preview on the 6th of December, and the preview will run all the way until 21st of December, just before Christmas. This EC is special because the booking day is 1 month after the preview period, when usually it's only a few days after. Later on, I'll explain why this is a big advantage for second-timer buyers, because for this EC, there will be no second-timer quota at all, which is a real game changer. As always, my goal is to provide you with useful and practical content. If you find this helpful, do consider subscribing, and if you have any questions, feel free to WhatsApp me via the QR code on the screen. Now let's address the big question many EC buyers are asking. Most of you already know that in March or April next year, there will be an EC launch at Tampines Street 95, commonly referred to as Rivelle EC. A lot of my clients have been asking me, should I wait for Rivelle instead? This is especially common among those who love Tampines. It's closer to the city, closer to Tampines West MRT, and it's rare nowadays to have an EC so near the MRT. It's also nearer to Tampines Central, which is a very established mature town. So the question becomes, should you wait for Rivelle EC and skip Coastal Cabana altogether? We'll talk about that in detail at the end of this video. Let me first run through what we'll be covering today. We'll start with a quick introduction to ECs, and also how ECs work and how you can qualify to buy one. I'll also share some case studies on the affordability so you can see how a typical HDB upgrader or first-timer might finance an EC. Next, we'll look at the Coastal Cabana location and why it stands out compared to many other EC sites. Because most ECs tend to be in a more ulu area, but this project is surrounded by amenities within a 5-minute walk. We'll then move on to the project fact sheet, followed by the price guide, and we'll analyze whether the pricing is fair and how it compares with upcoming ECs. After that, we'll go through the floor plans and key layout highlights. And finally, we'll end off with a comparison between Coastal Cabana and Rivelle. And I'll share my thoughts on whether you should wait or move ahead with Coastal Cabana. Whenever you talk about EC, we often refer back to an article by then Minister Khaw Boon Wan. He described ECs as a kind of Singaporean luxury, and he likened them to buying a Lexus at Toyota Corolla pricing. In other words, EC buyers were getting a private condo product at a significantly discounted entry price. He also mentioned that developers were building very large units, and because of that, many buyers ended up making very substantial profits. To sum it up, ECs were designed as a very favorable scheme for Singaporeans, and that's why you have seen ECs launches performing consistently well over the years. So why are ECs still so highly sought after today? For most people buying their first home or for HDB upgraders, ECs are a very good stepping stone. The main reason is the big price gap between an EC and a new private condo in the same area. Let's take an example from earlier this year. Rivelle EC in Tampines launched and sold out very quickly. The average price there was around 1767 PSF. Just a short walk away, we had Parktown Residence by UOL, which launched at an average of 2369 PSF. That's a price gap of about 700 PSF between both the EC and the private condo. So if you're lucky enough to buy Rivelle EC, your neighbor in the private condo across the road will now be transacting hundreds of dollars per square foot more than you. So the chance of you eventually selling at around $2,000 to $2,200 PSF next time looks entirely feasible. We saw the same pattern in the west side. Some projects like Novo Place launched at an average of about 1654 PSF. Nearby new project launches like Sora and Jayden were transacting in the ballpark of 2,002 to 2,400 PSF. Again, we see a $600 to $800 PSF gap. So when you enter an EC at this kind of discount to the private market, it's not hard to understand why ECs tend to perform so well. Now, let's look at how life-changing these numbers can be in reality. One famous example is 100 Palms EC, which launched in 2017. Back then, there was no e-balloting and queues literally formed along the roadside. In the end, the project sold out on the first day. Launch prices were only around 700 to 800 PSF back then, which is very hard to imagine today. 7 to 8 years later, after the units reached MOP, prices there have moved up to around 1,008 to 2,000 PSF. Some 4 and 5 bedroom owners have made profits of about $1.5 to even $1.7 million. Many of them can now comfortably down pay on a landed property or use the gains as a retirement fund if they choose to downsize later on. Another example is Soul Acres. It also launched at around 700 to 800 PSF. Today, owners are exiting with profits of around 600 to 700 PSF, which translates to around 800 to 900,000 gains for typical 3 and 4 bedroom units. In the north, we see the same pattern at the Brownstone EC. There, owners also experience gains of around 600 to 700 PSF, which works up to be about profits of 6 to 700,000. So when you buy an EC at significantly discounted entry price compared to neighboring private developments, the chance of you getting a good profit is quite likely. If you are interested in buying an EC, the next question is, how do you qualify? Let me summarize the main criteria. Your combined household income of a couple needs to be below 16,000. If you're slightly above this, there may be room for appeal to HDB, but approval is not guaranteed and has to be justified. ECs are restricted to first and second timers. So if you have bought from HDB directly or bought a resale flat with grants more than once, you will no longer be eligible. You also must not own any private property currently, and if you used to own one, it must already have been sold for more than 30 months. Finally, you must not own any overseas properties, including Malaysian properties. So if your situation is a bit complicated or your income is close to the limit, you can always WhatsApp me and I'll help you check. So let's clarify how first-timers and second-timers are defined. You're considered a first-timer if you have never bought from HDB directly and have never bought a resale flat with grants before. So if you're a first-timer buying an EC, you may also qualify for CPF housing grants. For example, if your income is 10K or lower, as a household, you're qualified for about 30K, and then if it's 10 to 11K, it's 20K grants, so on and so forth. Singaporean and PR households are also eligible, though the amount that you receive will be slightly lower. You are considered a second-timer if you have bought from HDB directly once or have bought resale with grants once. In that case, a resale levy is payable. This can range from 15,000 for a 2-room flat all the way to 55,000 for a EC. So this resale levy will be deducted from your cash proceeds when you sell your HDB. So it's important to include it in your financial planning. So for most EC launches, 70% of the units are allocated to first-timers during the initial balloting period, and only 30% are allocated to second-timers. So because of this, many second-timers may end up disappointed even though a large portion of EC demand actually comes from them. For Coastal Cabana, this situation is different. The sale day is 1 month after the preview period, and because of this launch structure, there will be no separate quota for first and second timers on booking day. In other words, as a second timer, you are now on equal footing with first timers. Your chances are significantly better than in recent EC launches. So let's move on to the payment schemes for ECs. There are 2 main options, the normal payment scheme and also the deferred payment scheme. Under the normal payment scheme, you typically pay a first 5% down payment on booking day in cash and the remaining 15% and your stamp duty and legal fees within about 9 weeks. After that, the remaining installment will be by progressive payment as the construction reaches different milestones such as foundation, roofing, car parks, and eventually vacant possession. Under the deferred payment scheme, which is especially popular with HDB upgraders, you still pay the initial 5% cash down payment, followed by your stamp duty and the 15%, as well as the legal fees within the first 9 weeks. However, the remaining 80% of the purchase price is only payable much closer to TOP. This allows you to buy an EC without having to sell your HDB first, so you don't need to rent or stay with your parents or in-laws in the interim. There is also a facility called the Deferred Bridging Loan, which is particularly useful for second-timers choosing the deferred payment scheme. So this is typically offered by most banks such as UOB, OCBC, and DBS. So this loan allows you to recognize some of the equity locked up in your existing HDB and use it to support your EC purchase. So this will actually help you reach up the 80% of the loan to value in total. So for banks like OCBC and UOB, the formula they use is 90% of your HDB valuation less your outstanding loan amount. So this may sound a bit technical, so let's look at a simple example next. Let's take a case study of a couple, Jack and Jeanette. So they are both 38 years old and they own a 4-room flat in Tampines North. And they've already met their MOP. So their HDB is valued at around 680,000 with an outstanding loan of 150,000. So their goal is to purchase a 3-bedroom at 915 square feet at Coastal Cabana, priced at 1.65 million. So they will be using the deferred payment scheme pricing. They do not wish to sell their existing HDB first, and they want to see if they can buy the EC now and only sell their HDB closer to their key collection. So the question is very simple. Can they actually buy? And also, how much cash and CPF do they need on hand? So let's look at their financials. Jack earns around 10,000 a month and is 38-year-old. And then Jeanette is also 38-year-old and she owns 4,800 per month. So assuming that Jack has an existing car loan of 1,000 and also a credit card liability of $100, and Jeanette also has a credit card liability of $100, based on their income and liabilities, their maximum standard mortgage loan works out to be around $878,000, which is about 75% of the property price. So if you look at this loan amount on its own, it is not enough to reach the 1.65 million purchase price at 80% loan to value. And this is where the deferred bridging loan comes in. Now let's calculate the deferred bridging loan. So using the formula of 90% of their HDB valuation minus the outstanding loan, there will be 90% of 680K minus 150K. So that works out to be about 462,000. When we add this mortgage loan of 878,000 with the 462,000, the total amount of loan will be 1.34 million. So if you work out 80% of 1.65 million, that works out to be 1.32 million. Since their total loan capacity of about 1.34 million is more than the 1.32 million, they do qualify for an 80% loan on the EC purchase. If these numbers still sound a bit confusing, don't worry too much. You can just WhatsApp me and I will run through your own figures with you. Now let's look at the down payment needed. For 1.65 million purchase price, that includes the 5% cash and then 15% CPF or cash, plus your stamp duties and legal fees. So the total amount required will be 385,000. So assuming that Jack and Jeanette already have 150K in their CPF OA currently, the amount of cash that they need on hand right now is about 235,000. So this is the amount they actually need on hand if they want to purchase Coastal Cabana at 1.65 million without selling their HDB first. Now let's move on to the location of Coastal Cabana and some quick facts about the project. On the location map, Coastal Cabana is the area highlighted in brown. Within the immediate radius, there are many amenities just across the road, such as Wawa Wet, E-Hub. Okay, we also have the resort. A short walk down brings you to Pasir Ris Park and Pasir Ris Beach. So you can actually see the sea very close to you, and that provides a very relaxing environment, which is a nice contrast to the stressful environment in our everyday life in Singapore. There are also several primary schools nearby, including Pasir Ris Primary and also Casuarina Primary, as well as Elias Park Primary. So Pasir Ris Central is close by as well, with many malls, such as White Sands and also the Pasir Ris Mall. And the Pasir Ris MRT is also nearby. An important upcoming enhancement is the Cross Island Line. The Cross Island Line is a major MRT project that will run from the Jurong Town Hall in the west and will cut across the central north near Bright Hill and Ang Mo Kio and eventually reach Pasir Ris. This line will greatly improve the connectivity across the island and make Pasir Ris even more accessible. So for example, if you travel from Pasir Ris to Punggol today, you need to go through many stations and make a few stops and changes. So with the Cross Island Line in place, that journey will be reduced to just 3 direct stops. Similarly, getting to central areas like Ang Mo Kio or Bright Hill will take you just 6 to 8 stops via train. So on top of that, you also have a direct 4-stop ride to the future Changi Airport Terminal 5. This level of connectivity is a real game changer, and if you buy into Coastal Cabana now, you are effectively taking advantage of this transformation as a first mover. Let's run through some quick facts about the project. Coastal Cabana has 16 blocks in total. 4 blocks are 11 stories high and 12 blocks are 12 stories high. The development sits on a large land parcel of more than 300,000 square feet. There are 748 units altogether, and one very nice feature is that it has a 1-to-1 car park ratio with fully basement parking. This is something many ECs do not offer today, so it's a strong plus point for drivers. The developer of Coastal Cabana are Qingjian and 4C Holdings. They have a solid track record, having developed projects such as Tenet EC, Altura, as well as private projects like Jadescape and also Foret, which fared really well during launch and also in the resale market. Here you can see the site plan of the development. I won't go into every single detail, but I want to highlight a few key things. First, the land area is very generous and the developers have used it well to create substantial landscaping and facilities. So there are two 50-meter swimming pool and a tennis court, and the central area is kept fairly open, so the blocks are not too close to one another. Okay, so this means that many of the corner stacks will have more open views and better privacy. Many buyers will be drawn to units facing Jalan Loyang Besar, okay, because that's the direction towards the sea. However, only a very small number of stacks will actually get the proper sea view. Likely you need to be level 8 and above at least to get the sea views. So those units will be very limited and in high demand. So unless you have a really good balloting number, I think we should be open to more options in general. So in terms of unit types, Coastal Cabana offers 3, 4 and 5 bedroom layouts. Okay, so the 3 bedroom ranges from 872 square feet to 915, and then the 4 bedroom will be starting from 990 up to about 1163, okay, for the typical 4 bed layouts. And then for the 5 bedroom premium, we have the 1367 and 1421 square feet layouts. So on paper, some of these sizes may look slightly smaller compared to older projects, but do note that this is a GFA harmonized development, so areas like aircon ledges are not factored into the unit size. Now let's talk about the pricing of Coastal Cabana and whether it makes sense. So the developer purchased the land for Coastal Cabana at around 729 PSF per plot ratio. Based on that, the starting price of around 1.438 million for a 3-bedroom deluxe, and also about 1.623 million for a 4-bedroom. This works out to be around starting from 1650 PSF. So there's a table that breaks down the starting prices for each unit type based on the 1650 PSF and upwards. So many buyers ask what would be the comfortable per square foot assumption for their calculations. In my view, a reasonable and conservative working figure will be around 1850 PSF. There's a good reason for that, which we can see from the next example. Here we have Rivelle EC again. Its land price was around 721 PSF. Okay, and this is very similar to Coastal Cabana's 729 PSF per plot ratio. When we look at Rivelle's launch pricing, it transacted from around 1650 PSF to about 1882 PSF and an average at around 1767 PSF. So with a similar land cost, the market was prepared to accept that kind of price range. For Coastal Cabana, even though the land cost is similar, we cannot just assume that the developer will copy the exact same prices because it is the only EC launching in this period, and EC supply in the East is also very limited. So the developer may decide to launch slightly higher and simply because they can, and they will still sell really well. So we should also compare Coastal Cabana with upcoming EC sites. So Coastal Cabana's land price is 729 PSF. The EC plots at Senja and also Woodlands were purchased at 771 and 782 PSF respectively. So this is about 5 to 6% higher than the land cost of Coastal Cabana. So I would like to say that Coastal Cabana is likely to be the last chance to enter at this pricing tier before future ECs, especially if in more outskirt locations step up to even higher price level. Now let's take a closer look at the floor plans. So I'll summarize the main points instead of going through every detail. So for the 3-bedroom, we have the types C1A and C1B. Okay, they're essentially mirror images of each other with very efficient squarish common bedrooms, an enclosed kitchen, okay, and also a bomb shelter, which is very useful for storage. So the next tier in the 3-bedroom premium layouts, we have type C2 and C3. So type C2 has a third WC at the yard and also a very small study alcove, okay, which is about 1 square meter. So type C3 is the 3-bedroom premium plus study at 915 square feet. So this will be the show flat layout and will likely be very popular because everyone can feel and see the actual space. So the study here is a proper 4 square meter that can actually combine with the master bedroom in future if you wish, because the wall can be hacked. So the trade-off is there is no third bathroom at the yard, but in reality, many families do not fully use the extra yard WC anyway. So for most people, this layout still can work very well. So for the 4 bedrooms, we can roughly classify them into 2 groups. The first group consists of smaller size 4 bedrooms, the type D1, D2 and D3, starting at 990 square feet. D1 and 2 are quite similar, with the main difference being that bedroom 4 is 7 square meter versus 8 square meter. D3 has 3 9 square meter bedrooms, okay, and also comes with a dry kitchen. So this is a very nice feature if you like to entertain. The second group of larger 4 bedrooms are D4, D4B and also D5. D4 and D4B comes with a study and that sits near the master. Okay? And this is a similar concept to the 3+ study. So in type D4B, the master also has an additional balcony. So for D5, it's a bit different. It does not have the study room near the master. Instead, it has this flexi space at the living area. So you can use this as a study or leave it open to create a wider, more spacious living and dining area. So for the 5-bedroom, both layouts are very similar. The main difference is that one type has a 9 square meter balcony at the living area, while the other one has the balcony extend to bedroom 4, and it adds up to 14 square meter. So now this brings us to the golden question. With Coastal Cabana launching now, should you wait for Rivelle EC instead? This is a question many buyers have been asking. Ultimately, whether you should wait is a very personal decision. If you are a strong Tampines supporter, let's say your family, parents or in-laws are all in Tampines and you really don't like Pasir Ris for some reason, then waiting for Rivelle EC may make more sense for you. However, if you are relatively neutral between both locations and you just like the East in general, I'll be more proactive rather than wait. So let's revisit Oriole EC as a case study. During launch, there were 1,771 applications for just 760 units. About 480 units were sold to first-timers and 280 units were sold to second-timers. That means around 1,011 applicants did not manage to secure a unit. These buyers are still out there waiting for the next suitable EC. And today, this number is probably even higher because more HDBs have reached their MOP and more people have also seen how profitable ECs can be. So when the odds are so tight, and if you are neutral between Pasir Ris and Tampines, I would strongly recommend at least putting in a ballot for Coastal Cabana first and then decide based on your queue number. We also need to look at the land price between the two ECs. So Rivelle EC's land was purchased at 768 PSF per plot ratio. As we mentioned earlier, Coastal Cabana's one was purchased at 729 PSF per plot ratio. That means Rivelle's land cost is roughly 5.3% higher, which already increases the developer's base cost by that margin. This strongly suggests that Rivelle EC will on average sell at a higher pricing than Coastal Cabana. So if you're quite price sensitive, you may find yourself paying significantly more per square foot at Rivelle for the same unit size at Coastal Cabana. Or you might have to downsize from a 4-bedroom at Coastal Cabana to a 3-bedroom at Rivelle just to stay within the budget. So if you're neutral or semi-neutral about the location, it still makes a lot of sense to submit a ballot for Coastal Cabana just to see your queue number you receive. Let's compare the locations more directly. So Rivelle EC is located in Tampines, which is one of the most popular and established metro towns in Singapore. It will be within a short walking distance to Tampines West MRT on the downtown line, which is very convenient if you frequently travel to the city or town area. However, in the immediate surrounding of Rivelle, you'll mainly find HDB blocks with fewer major malls and lifestyle amenities right next door. There is a Safra Tampines just nearby, and also Bedok Reservoir is close by if you enjoy evening runs or walks. So there's still a nice lifestyle element. Overall, it's a comfortable and familiar environment with a very strong MRT connectivity, but not as many large amenities directly at your doorstep. Now, compared to Coastal Cabana, just now we mentioned, within a short walking distance, you already have downtown East just across, E-Hub, Wild Wet, and also the beach and the park and the coastal walkway. So you get a mix of retail, F&B, entertainment, and nature, all within just 5 minutes or so. So you also have the advantage of the upcoming Cross Island Line, which we discussed earlier, bringing improved connectivity and a direct link to Changi Airport Terminal 5. So if you're someone who values amenities and nature right at your doorstep, Coastal Cabana ticks many boxes. Tampines, of course, remains a very strong mature estate, so it's not about one being good and the other being bad. It's about which lifestyle and environment you personally prefer. We have now come to the end of this video. I hope you have found this breakdown of ECs as well as the comparison between Coastal Cabana and Rivelle EC useful. EC eligibility grants and loan structuring can be quite technical and every household is different. So if you would like a personalized assessment or an EC eligibility check, feel free to scan the WhatsApp QR code on the screen or drop me a message. So if you enjoyed this video, do consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss future analysis. Thank you for watching. See you for the next one. Bye-bye.